Trump's financial disclosure report was dropped yesterday, and inside it showed Trump's personal Bitcoin holdings. But what's fascinating is they also dropped Vice President J.D. Vance's as well, and he continues to hodl his Bitcoin. But I think what is the most interesting aspect about just seeing into the financials is really trying to mind read the bigger picture. I think the report quietly reveals the Trump administration's plan for Bitcoin over the next 2 years. And really what the headlines picked up on was Trump's dirty little crypto secret here. So I'll start with the official report. Here it is. It is on OGE.gov, and it goes, the President and Vice President Certified Annual Financial Disclosure Report. Now, what is really interesting is Trump's was like almost 1,000 pages. It was like 927 pages. JD Vance's was 17. There is some interesting view into Trump's financials. As you guys know, I was actually trolling a little bit here. You know, I'm going to troll right off the bat here. So, you know, if you want a serious show, it's not the one with me solo on it today. Remember the Nancy Pelosi trading tracker Twitter account? Bro, you really want to make some money right now? Just follow all of President Trump's trades in the stock market. You'll probably make a bag, okay? That's the first joke I got for you today. Anyways, this is going to be it's going to be a little clunky right now because I do have to go to the PDF report to show you the holdings. So this is what is making the rounds right now. It is that right here you can see President Trump disclosed that he has a quote, crypto wallet virtual Bitcoin key with parentheses held in cold wallet of over $50 million. So the president of the United States in the big 2-6 is hodling $50 million plus in cold storage in self-custody. Like, you know, crazy timeline. Say what we want about President Trump, but hey, first quote, Bitcoin president holding over $50 million in self-custody. Look, if the president can do it, he's damn near, 80, almost 100 years old. He's self-custodying Bitcoin. I think every one of us can self-custody Bitcoin. Though, I hear the haters out there, and they're like, bro, he doesn't know what he's doing. You know, it's probably Barron Trump that's self-custodying his Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, whatever, dude. I get it, but it's really not that difficult. And even further, it's like maybe you should just be doing that for your friends and family as well, which, you know, we always kind of talk about here. But it does go a little further. And this is the part that I personally am not the biggest fan of, but you can see what is going on from the Trump administration, or at least from Trump himself, though he did respond to this report. So I will get to the mainstream response to this disclosure. I will get Trump's response to this disclosure. But before I get there, you can see, I don't know what this first one is. Cryptocurrency wallet virtual USD key. I don't know if that means like Tether. Is that USD Tether or something? I have no idea. And it says, what's it say right here? About $100,000 to $250,000. So USD, virtual USD. It doesn't give us any more information. I think that's Tether. I would say it's Tether. But the bottom one is a lot clearer. Cryptocurrency wallet virtual USDC key, or Circle, or the Coinbase stablecoin, which is $5 million to $25 million. And then he has cryptocurrency wallet virtual Ethereum key of $5 to $25 million. And it is being staked on Coinbase. So, hey, it's a shitcoin portfolio. You know, hey, they can't be perfect. Though I think from like a normie Bitcoin perspective, it is, look, you're going to throw tomatoes. It is kind of, you know, like, if this is your intermediate step into Bitcoin, it does kind of look like a balanced portfolio, at least from a traditional asset manager view of this asset class. Okay, I would say he should go 100 million all in on Bitcoin. But hey, you know, if you read Trump's response to this, you'll get a little more information on what his thinking is. And then I'm not going to go fully into the Vance disclosure here, but I do have it for you so that you guys can see that I'm not just making stuff up. I thought I pulled it up. Apparently I did not. So let me pull that up for you guys. And it is from Bitcoin Mag disclosing JD Vance's Bitcoin holdings. Where'd it go? I thought I had it here. I should have had it here. Anyways, $250,000 to $500,000, which is, from my recollection, basically the amount of Bitcoin that JD Vance disclosed at the beginning of his presidency, or sorry, vice presidency. Here it goes. Tweeted from our boys over at the Bitcoin Magazine, and it is JD Vance discloses owning 250,000 to 500,000 in Bitcoin, which is, again, I think he's just hodling the Bitcoin that he held before. So he might have stacked more, considering that the Bitcoin price has dropped 50%. At the time when he disclosed his financials before becoming the vice president, I believe it was about 5 Bitcoin that he held. That was around all-time high. So in this context, since the disclosure is now, I think he might have added another 5 to this. I don't know. I'm mind reading here. So the president and vice president are holding Bitcoin, stacking pretty big bags, being realistic about that. Now, before I get to what the corporate press is kind of saying and really exposing Trump's dirty crypto secret and really making me worried for what is going to happen in the midterms and beyond, I'll get to that in a minute. 1, self-custody. You should have some Bitcoin in self-custody. First and foremost, point blank, you need to have some Bitcoin in self-custody. If you are maybe someone that isn't as ideologically in favor of Bitcoin like myself and like a lot of us in the chat, maybe it's like 50% in ETF and 50% in self-custody. That might be the general view for like a more normie-centric Bitcoin enthusiast. Probably want some in the traditional financial system, and then you want some outside of the system. Now, from my perspective, I would say you want it all out of the financial system, but everyone is different, and there is no one size fits all of what this is. Now, that's just like the first, W, I would say, from a ideological Bitcoin perspective. Now, the further conversation just purely on his Bitcoin holdings, it does remind me of what my boy G Money has been saying the last couple of weeks. He came on the show. I went on his show. And there has been a very big ongoing debate on how serious the Trump administration is about Bitcoin. Obviously, the Clarity Act, it seems to continue to be delayed. There has been a strong push from the Trump administration on the federal level to get it passed. Obviously announced the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve executive order, but we really haven't heard anything in a long time coming out of the federal government. So a lot of Bitcoiners, being nice about it, maybe are being a tad impatient, being more cynical, which is my kind of view, I would say, is that they really didn't mean they really didn't mean to do any follow through. Obviously, the taco meme comes out here, Trump always chickens out meme. And look, I like to think that I am objective in terms of Trump. I don't really fall into the fanfare so much. I think he's hilarious. He's probably the funniest president we've ever had. I also kind of view him as a tad bit incompetent. Now, so I think I am a little balanced on my Trump view on this. But what is very clear to me with this financial disclosure is that the Trump administration, at least from the federal level, at least from the heads of this, now everyone down the line there, maybe they're not so gung-ho about Bitcoin, or maybe they're even more gung-ho about Bitcoin. But I think just from this disclosure itself and mind reading and speculating, but, talking head, this is my opinion just based on the information I'm seeing, is that I truly believe they are serious about all of the Bitcoin stuff that they said, even though the cynical part of me has always been like, they just wanted your vote. And now that they got your vote, the elites, the people in power, they don't care about what you actually want. It's really about what the lobbying groups want. And therefore, we're not going to see any follow through on any of the Bitcoin strategic reserve conversation, even though I do, love Senator Cynthia Lummis, and she's been very gung-ho about America stacking Bitcoin. And we have other senators and congressmen that are pro-Bitcoin. But for a while there, maybe it's because we haven't heard anything about it. I was like, dude, nothing's going to happen with the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Though, hey, who knows? Maybe we get a crazy announcement this weekend on July 4th. Who knows? There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of conversation about, like, my boy McFly in the chat is like, what if they announce that they bought 250,000 coins on Saturday? Be like, hey, man, I'm cool with that. Like, pump our bags, you know? Like, that would completely mark the bottom of this bear market. So, hey, it is what it is, right? But I think with looking at these disclosures, seeing that they are, one, having some Bitcoin in self-custody, two, adding to their Bitcoin positions, really tells us a lot about their long-term view on not just Bitcoin, but what America's going to do with Bitcoin. They're obviously not just doing ETF Bitcoin exposure. They're holding Bitcoin, spot Bitcoin, and I would say essentially going to follow through on all of the Bitcoin news. Remember what Trump said weeks after he got elected is 150K Bitcoin very soon in his presidency. You know, he wants to see Bitcoin become the Bitcoin, or he wants to see America become the Bitcoin superpower of the world. I think with viewing his financials, because we always say, don't just listen to what they say, watch what they do. And if they're acquiring a bunch of Bitcoin, they have, you know, 8 figures in Bitcoin, at least from the president, I think it's pretty safe to say that they're pretty serious about Bitcoin. You know, G Money goes so far as saying that Trump's a Bitcoin maxi, but he can't actually just go full hyper Bitcoinization. Kind of a stretch, but I want to believe. Though I'm kind of coming around to the idea of we are in a, actually not really coming around. I've been saying it for a while. We are in a bimetal era. We are living in a world where the dollar is going to still be around, and Bitcoin, like the dollar, will be used as, you know, government fund coupons, consumer coupons, and Bitcoin will be used as your store of value. That's the world that we live in. The ideological idea that we're going to simply jump from a purely dollar fiat standard to a purely hyper Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin standard, I think that is fantasy, you know, ideology. And that's not to hate on the Bitcoiners that say that. From what I'm seeing in practice, that's just not how things are working out. Obviously, stable coins have a huge use. We just saw yesterday that basically all the big financial institutions are launching their own stable coins. We saw JP Morgan kind of turn and pivot his view on stable coins. I would argue probably because that, you know, the big banks and everyone is launching their own stable coins. So they fight the competition so that they can be the leader in that, you know, new industry, that new payment rail. I think we're starting to see that in reality, on the ground, what is happening is we are in a bimetal era. Dollars will be around. Dollars will be used for consumption. There will be stable coins to proliferate dollar dominance to parts outside of the U.S., and anyone that really understands where we currently stand will be saving in Bitcoin. Which is to say that I think America, at least as of now, depending, of course, before what happens in the midterms, and I will expand a little bit on this in a minute, they are serious about all of the Bitcoin talk. I think Bitcoin is a very clear tool in this economic reset. We are in the economic reset, and Bitcoin is a part of that. As we all saw from the Iran U.S. conflict, the Strait of Hormuz ceasefire, Bitcoin is a part of not only the macro conversation, but the geopolitical conversation. It is as you know, G Money and Jason Lowry would say, a defense. I forget what they say. A weapon again, a defense weapon. I forget what they always say. But it is an integral part of the future that we are living in and that we are going. Bitcoin is here to stay. That is without a doubt. It's no longer a conversation, at least from like true Bitcoin believers. You could say Bitcoin cult members. Bitcoin isn't going to zero. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Bitcoin's not going to go to zero. And if Bitcoin's not going to go to zero, then it's going to go to heights that we can never imagine, hopefully in our lifetimes. Obviously, I have a joke with one of my friends, Sal, the official Simply Bitcoin trainer. It's like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to $1 million, or wait, no, it's Bitcoin is generational wealth, but we might not be the generation that sees it. Like, look, hey guys, the C is wearing off on me. The Nico's bear juices are wearing off on me. I'm being a little cynical. I'm trolling a little bit. Okay. But I think it's very clear to just view this in the right context that the U.S., or rather the Trump administration, Scott Bessent, J.D. Vance, Trump, I would say, Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., but Tulsi's out. RFK Jr. is like, I don't know, non-existent. He's all talking about peptides and stuff now. It is a very critical aspect of the Trump economic reset, the Mar-a-Lago Accords, which is, of course, expand the liquidity supply, lower interest rates, and stablecoins and Bitcoins will be a valve for all of that liquidity. So Bitcoin will reach these heights. Bitcoin is here to stay. As we all have been saying for 2 years at this point, ever since the U.S. came out and talked favorably about Bitcoin, that domino has kicked off a new wave of Bitcoin adoption. Every nation state in the world, every sovereign state and individual in the world now has to take Bitcoin seriously or they will be left behind. That's what I think this report is showing us. You can say that I'm being naively bullish, sure. But if they're buying Bitcoin, they're stacking more Bitcoin. They have it not just in an ETF Bitcoin wrapper. I think it's pretty safe to say that they are serious about Bitcoin. And if, again, they maintain power through the midterms, then we will definitely be seeing a lot bigger push towards Bitcoin. That's a big if at this point, though. Okay, now going further, let's see what the mainstream media is saying about this disclosure. And I think this headline sums it up perfectly. Trump's financial disclosure lists $1.4 billion in crypto earnings powered largely by meme coins. Oh, man. Yeah, we're cooked, bro. We are never going to live this down. President Donald Trump earned more than $635 million from a licensing agreement with a cryptocurrency group specializing in meme coins bearing his name last year, an amount that pushed his total crypto holdings past $1 billion, according to a lengthy financial disclosure form he released Tuesday. Again, it was 927 pages. It was insane. So Trump's meme coin earnings came on top of more than $236 million worth from additional crypto token sales and an additional sale of equity worth more than $65 million associated with Trump family crypto venture World Liberty Finance. There's also more than $290 million classified as income from cryptocurrency wallets associated with World Liberty. The $635 million was earned from a group called, quote, Celebration Coins. There's no digital footprint could be found for the group, and a representative from the Trump administration did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So here's like the official quote in here. Neither the president nor his family has ever engaged or will engage in conflicts of interest. President Trump proudly made the United States the crypto capital of the world through executive action, supporting legislation like the Genius Act and other common sense policies to drive innovation and economic opportunity for all Americans. So obviously the numbers do kind of paint a slightly different picture here, which is the conversation we've been having here for a long time. Like, is Trump a net positive for Bitcoin or has he been a net negative? This number doesn't look good. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because there's still a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen in the midterms. If the Republicans lose to the Democrats, I would venture to guess, and I don't think it's a very hard guess to make, that all of the Bitcoin stuff will completely go out the window, but even worse, it's going to be used as ammunition to basically talk about the corruption that we have seen from the Trump administration. Now, I know that's maybe a harsh way of saying it, but it does seem like, end of empire vibes here, the decline of the Roman Empire, late stage fiat vibes where the people in power are just robbing the coffers and they're just cashing out as much as they possibly can. Now, one of the things that I did hear that was kind of interesting is, and maybe this is, coming from someone that was more pro-Trump, and now they are kind of dissenting, and they're not really happy with what the Trump administration is doing. Maybe they don't understand what Tom Luongo has been saying, but it was interesting point, and this is why I'm going to relay it. And it was basically in the first Trump administration, Trump, and again, maybe you don't like Trump. I know a lot of people don't. But in the first Trump administration, he was a little more ideological, and he, being lenient and optimistic about the, quote, MAGA movement, Make America Great movement, and Trump as an individual, that he really wanted to change the U.S. and the corruption, quote, wasn't like he didn't go in there like a lot of other politicians, because again, he was a billionaire when he got into office. He didn't really need to steal from the Wall Street, and that might not be the right way, but he didn't really need to steal from the public like a lot of other politicians, because he was already a billionaire. At least that's what the initial rhetoric was. That was the initial image of Trump. But now in the second administration, because he went through all those lengthy legal battles, because of his reputation being thrown in the dirt, he's basically saying like what the hell? Let me just cash out. Let me just get as much money as humanly possible right now. Like, if everyone else is doing, I'm an idiot for not doing it. And maybe that's where the meme coins kind of fall into place here, because I did see another metric or another tweet basically explaining that Trump himself, his personal earnings have like 3x since he's been in office, from I think it was like 1.4 or 1.5 billion up where near to like $6 billion now. So it's without a doubt that he's making again, scientific term, shit ton of money right now. And I think if the Dems win the midterms, this is going to be used against the Trump administration. They're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to see impeachments. We're going to see corruption, rhetoric thrown at the Trump administration. A lot of people are going to be damaged because of headlines like this. And further, the part that will relate to us, whether you like Trump or not, is Bitcoin will be dragged in the mud during that process. They're going to come after us. We're going to be cooked, guys. Like, we can't live down two very bad news stories. 2022-ish or 2021, I forget the exact date. It's like FTX, everyone's a scammer. Everyone in our industry is a scammer. And now in 2026, the U.S. president is using Bitcoin and shitcoins, really using shitcoins to scam. It's not going to be good PR for us, guys. It's going to be very bad. And really, the part that is probably the most terrifying for us Bitcoiners, or maybe you'll get bullish, it's really thinking about what happens in 2028. If the Dems come back into power and they take the executive branch, they become, we get a Democratic president, you better believe that we, as a Bitcoin community, they are not going to separate Bitcoin from shitcoins. We are all going to get thrown under the bus. It's going to be very bad. Like, okay, that is, I think, a very easy prediction to make. Now, I told you Trump did respond to this. Here is his response coming from the Hill. Trump responds to eye-popping report on crypto profits while president. And he goes, President Trump the Hill goes, President Trump on Wednesday distanced himself from his recently released personal financial disclosures showing more than $1 billion in revenue from cryptocurrency sales and other ventures. Quote, I don't get involved in my personal. We have funds that run my money. Where'd it go later? I made a lot of money before I became president. Trump went on to say the financial institutions that handle his personal finances creates a blind account, and he purposely does not speak to anyone involved in handling those funds. Quote, they invest my money. I don't talk to them. I don't even speak to them. So I have many people. I don't know what they call them, closed accounts or something. You put their money and that's it. You put your money there and that's it. I don't talk to them. They're big institutions and they run it. This is probably the most damning quote of this. Everybody is profiting. The world is a casino. Okay. The world is a casino. So, I didn't pull it up for you guys. Sorry. So here's the Hill. He is trying to distance himself from this, basically saying like, hey, I'm not at fault for this. I'm focused on presidential duties. I just give people my money and they're doing a good job right now. It's the best stock market ever, best economy ever. Honestly, it's kind of hilarious. He's like, I wasn't even a part of all the crypto scams. They just slapped my name on it and I got rewarded from it. You know, the Trump coin's down like 99 plus percent. The Melania coin's down 99 plus percent. It was a classic crypto rug pull. So we are working with two opposing views here, okay? One, yes, the Trump administration is most likely serious about Bitcoin, and I would say further serious about stablecoin adoption because they want to proliferate the dollar to every corner of planet Earth. I think they do want to do the strategic Bitcoin reserve, probably add more Bitcoin to it, not just in a budget neutral way, but expand their Bitcoin holdings, get the Clarity Act passed through. And then on the other side, we have what the corporate press is going to be using, and further, what the enemies and opponents of Donald Trump will be used to essentially neuter and destroy the Trump administration, and most likely the GOP in general. That they're just a bunch of scammers. They're robbing the coffers. Look at the insane amounts of corruption we've seen from the Trump administration. I can already see where this is going. And part of that process is, as I've been saying for a long time, we're going to get thrown under the bus during that process. The bullish, kind of cynical, trolling view on this is maybe when the government fights us again, number will go up. So maybe there's a silver lining in this, okay? Maybe there's a silver lining in this. But 2028 is going to be extremely bad for us Americans if there's a Democratic president. If Gavin Newsom gets in as president, bro, we are so cooked. If AOC gets in, we are cooked. You know I've been fighting Nico for a long time saying that we'd escape to El Salvador, but honestly, that's, I'm looking into the future. I'm like, yo, it might actually have to happen, which I think is why it's so important for I don't really like the Clarity Act, but for the Clarity Act to be codified into law so they can't actually come after us. There is clear rules of the road. There is a lot less fraud that partakes on, quote, offshore Bitcoin exchanges, a lot less naked shorting. Like, the markets will mature if Clarity Act does go through. Obviously, from a pure ideological Bitcoin perspective, there's not much in it for us Bitcoiners. Yeah, maybe self-custody is codified into law. Seems like there's some open source Bitcoin developer laws, protections in there. But overall, I would say it's a shitcoin bill. As we see now, all the big banks are backing the bill, which should make you feel a bit uncomfortable. I'm still of the opinion no bill is probably better than a bad bill. But we are seeing, again, a last-minute push for it to happen around August. But anyways, so two minds on this. One, I think it does expose the Trump administration as being serious about Bitcoin, actually wanting Bitcoin to be a part of this monetary reset, to be a part of the financial plumbing of the world. And then also the shit coins, bro, that was a bad look. We're going to get cooked, okay? Is he a net positive to Bitcoin at this point? I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards it's a net negative. We got to see where all the how do you say the idiom? Where all the things fall into place. But I'm already foreshadowing where this is going to go, and I think we are going to see a major backlash on us Bitcoiners that just want to protect our value, store our value, transact peer to peer. I already see it coming. It's not going to be pretty. Anyways, I do have a clip from Charles Schwab. Of course, they just launched their trading platform, and they're getting super bullish. I know we dropped to 57K, but it responded pretty strong. They're starting to say the B word. We got the big institutions starting to call a B word here. And then we're going to have a spicy show for you guys today. We got Tone Vays coming on today. And we're going to be talking about BIP 110. Rustin did the more pro BIP 110 Jack Cruz video on, I believe it was Thursday. The entire community was talking about it. We're bringing on Tone Vays today. So I know you guys say we don't talk about BIP 110 enough. We're going to have a chat. This is going to be the against BIP 110. So maybe we'll respond to some of your guys' comments in the chat. On that note, first commercial break, and I'll be right back. Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent, straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own. Paper burns, paper floods, paper fades. If your seed phrase is written on paper, it's not really backed up. It's waiting to disappear. Stampseed's DIY kit lets you hammer your seed words directly into commercial grade titanium. Fireproof, crush-proof, waterproof, and permanent. Once your words are in the metal, they aren't going anywhere. Use code SIMPLY at stampseed.com for 15% off anything in the store. That's stampseed.com, code SIMPLY. Alrighty then. The current Bitcoin price, wow, it's at $59,800. Actually, let's maybe if Tone pops in here soon, we'll do some chart boying. But I did see the price, it went down to 57. It finally broke 58K, gang, and then it went up to 60. So if we do end up and the daily candle closes above 60 today, my boy Luke this morning, Luke Mikic was like, are we going to see a bullish engulf? I'm like, dude, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. All right. So the discount from all-time high, 52.6%. The market cap currently at $1.2 trillion. And the block height, TikTok next block, 956,243. All right, guys. So this clip was making its way around Twitter of someone from Charles Schwab. He was on the Charles Schwab network. They asked him about Bitcoin, and it seems like they're calling the bottom. So let's watch this clip real quick.
If enough investors believe it will, it's likely to show itself in the prices.
Okay, then bringing this all together, are you seeing signs that Bitcoin could have bottomed from here?
Going back to my original comments, the difficulty adjustment being adjusted about 5% higher is pretty good evidence that we may have found a local bottom. Historically, this has been confirmation that the bottom is in. A lot of the recent weakness we've seen the past 2 weeks is really macro driven as opposed to Bitcoin driven. The big deleveraging that we saw in the first 6 months of the bear market, that was really specific to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. A lot of the recent weakness has been really from the latest FOMC meeting. The press conference was perceived hawkish. We've seen interest rate expectations rise, so the market's pricing in rate hikes over the next year. And so that's having an impact on cryptocurrencies, but also all non-dollar assets and long-duration assets. And so macro can certainly have an impact, but we think that this is a good indicator that prices may stabilize here in the short term.
Honestly, kind of surprised by his response, first and foremost, just by, talking about the difficulty adjustment and hash rate. I'm like, okay, pleasantly surprised by the Charles Schwab network and their quote, institutional Bitcoin expert there. Like, all right, hey, honestly, pretty good analysis, I would say. Though I'm more of a, left side of the bell curve. I'm like, yo, the bears have been trying to push this under 60K. Yeah, we got the 57K. But the fact that they can't push us any lower, kind of, I don't want to say it, I don't want to jinx it, but I'm kind of feeling like maybe that was the bottom, boys and girls. Though, obviously, I saw Benjamin Cohen this morning say, he put a tweet out that was like, it was $5,700. I believe that was in the 2018 cycle. And now Bitcoin hit $57,000. He's like, simulation continues. If you weren't around then, it went from 5,700 down to like 3,500, though he's implying we still got more to go, though part of that crash was the 2020 shutdown. I think the situation is a little different. The most bullish chart that I saw, actually, I was thinking about covering it on today's show as a headline, but we did just see the worst month in Bitcoin since 2022. I believe it was June of 2022 so 4 years and literally to the month. It's the worst month we've seen in 4 years. It was pretty brutal, though. I saw a lot of people on the flip side essentially saying that usually Bitcoin would see 2 6-month candles that are red, and then following that we would see green candles for 4 to 6 month session. So it's about 2.5 years, though there is that one caveat that we did see in 2013. There were 3 6-month candles. So I say all that to essentially say the gut feeling here. I could do all the chart blowing that I've been kind of doing for you guys to make my case. I'm seeing a lot of on-chain metrics. I'm seeing a lot of whales accumulating. Yes, we are seeing ETF outflows. Yes, we're seeing public Bitcoin miners dropping a lot of Bitcoin, selling huge stacks. Yes, we are seeing potentially Michael Saylor and Bitcoin treasury companies sell more Bitcoin. The fact we are seeing all of this selling at the same time and the price isn't nuking on us is really showing me that the whales accumulating right now, the true Bitcoin believers, the believers with capital are also accumulating at the same time. And just some simply supply-demand economics, that's showing me the bears may not be in control. I think the bears and market makers are trying to get their last gasp right now. Obviously, I could be wrong. In hindsight, we will know for sure. But again, as I've been saying, I think right now, we're may not be at the bottom, tippy bottom, but right now still a good time to be acquiring. I think right now is an accumulation area. You're going to be happy with 60K buys in your Bitcoin, or 57, 58, 59 buys in the future. Could go potentially a little lower, but I do necessarily agree with the Charles Schwab analysts here. And of course, they are new to the space. They just launched Bitcoin trading about a week ago. But as I've been saying, a lot of these institutions don't just launch a Bitcoin product. They study it for a little while before. And remember, 2024 in January was when the BlackRock ETF launched. So they've had about 2 years to study Bitcoin. Maybe, being a little less bullish on it, maybe 1 year to study Bitcoin, but they are studying Bitcoin. And you could argue that they've probably been a little more aware of Bitcoin for longer than just 2 years. But you're seeing they're coming out of the gate very hot. They are very pro Bitcoin. Obviously, they want to make their management fees on their trading platform. Obviously, the customers of these institutions are asking for Bitcoin exposure. But the tale is no one really knows. No one has any clue. And so annoying hearing you. Yeah, hey, well, there's other shows. This is a free show. You could go watch something else. It's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Hold on. Oh, I thought a tone popped in. So I know Nico's been saying on the, actually, I was behind the scenes, guys. I was literally pulling my hair out when he was saying this. He pulled the Ben Cohen cycle meme and tops to bottom meme. And he was making the case that we have more, like, lower to go. And I'm looking at that chart and I'm like, it kind of looks like it bottomed out already. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to rip up, but probably sideways. And who knows when the official turnaround will be, but kind of feels like it's bottomed. All right. It kind of feels like it is bottomed. Hey, shouts out to the chat backing me. All right. So Let me see. But actually, one thing that is very interesting in terms of where Bitcoin currently stands and further what the risk appetite is for the general traditional market is, I don't know if you guys are watching Dixie, but the dollar is strengthening right now. And historically, in a world where the dollar strengthens, Bitcoin does kind of drop. The appetite for risky investments does go down because people are a lot more comfortable just sitting in dollars right now. The dollar is strengthening right now. And you could argue that that's maybe a lot of other fiat currencies kind of collapsing into the dollar. But it is interesting where we're going. Like, what does a world look like where we have a strong dollar and a strong Bitcoin? We haven't historically seen that. Now, this could be hypothetical. I could be living in Fantasyland, but if we are truly in a bimetal era, a bimetal kind of future, and we're seeing, and further, if the Trump administration doesn't lose the midterms or the Republicans don't lose the midterms and they are able to push through all of the Bitcoin legislation that we've been talking about, it is going to be very interesting to see what Bitcoin does with a strong dollar. And that's currently where we are right now. Even though there's a lot of macro uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty, it looks like we're going back into Iran. The ceasefire is basically falling apart. It is interesting to just kind of think about, well, I don't want to say it, is this time different? Will Bitcoin react differently in a world where there's a strong dollar, Bitcoin starts ripping? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the SpaceX IPO, the upcoming AI IPOs, obviously the hype in AI. If the AI cycle is, or hype bubble is truly kind of getting extremely toppy here and potentially going to burst, like a lot of people are saying, I don't know. I think it could run a lot higher than many people expect. It is going to be very interesting to see when people start finding the escape route. Will they look towards the dollar? Will they look at gold because it's cheap? Gold's down a lot. I think it lost like $10 trillion in its market cap in the last like week. And then we have a completely undervalued Bitcoin. If more people start to view Bitcoin as something that is a necessity to their portfolio, alongside their dollars and stock investments, I think it's going to be a very interesting world that we're living in. Replace the saying, follow the money. Personally, I'm on the road to follow the Bitcoin way. Yeah, for sure. How much BTC does Trump got? I don't know, what, 50 million? That's somewhere around 500 plus coins. It says over 50 million. So I don't know. Let's see. What is $50 million in Bitcoin today? I think it's over 500 coins. 50 million in today's dollars, 835.33 Bitcoin. So almost 1,000 coins. It says over $50 million in Bitcoin. So he could have 1,000 coins himself. It's kind of crazy, dude. The first quote Bitcoin president has 1,000 Bitcoin personally. Or wait, sorry. His financial advisors have allocated 1,000 Bitcoin to his personal finances. I gotta play the political game here, okay? Oh man. All right, guys. I think I don't have Tone in the show yet. So I think I'm gonna hit the double ads for you guys. So stick around. Hopefully Tone pops in during the ads. If not, I'll ramble a little more for you guys. And we're going to be talking about BIP 110. Okay. So here we go. I'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledden's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with zero penalties or monthly payments. Ledden's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledden. If you ever thought, what happens to my Bitcoin if something happens to me? Or what happens if I lose my phone? You're not alone. For a lot of people, the biggest barrier to self-custody isn't buying Bitcoin. It's the fear of making a mistake. And that's why I like Bitkey and I recommend it to my friends and family. Bitkey is a Bitcoin wallet built for real life, not just for day one, but for everything that happens in between. Lost devices, upgrades, accidents, and long-term ownership. There's no seed phrase to write down and worry about losing, and no single point of failure that can lock you out of your Bitcoin forever. What really stands out about Bitkey is the peace of mind. Recovery is built in, inheritance is built in. It's a complete self-custody system built by the team behind Square and Cash App, designed to make holding your own Bitcoin simpler and safer. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today using Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world and use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your new Bitkey. That's bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy across 3 continents, HIVE runs dual engines, Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Their AI platform is ranked #1 in the world for network performance, and it's doing something bigger than compute. It's accelerating human discovery, the science, the breakthroughs, pushing humanity further and faster. Listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker HIVE. Catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech on X or hivedigitaltech.com.
Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, cell towers can fail. Hurricanes, cyber attacks, blackouts. Most people go dark. Satellite phones don't rely on local infrastructure. With Iridium, 77 satellites in orbit, you can stay connected across the U.S., even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123 also has Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags for your hardware wallets, and everything you need to build your own off-grid Bitcoin citadel. Go to sat123.com/simply and use promo code SIMPLY for 15% off anything in the store. All right. Mind of Elijah. I've been trying to look for some memes, dude. I got like 1 or 2 good memes, so I don't have enough to do a meme review. Dude, if you want meme review, I need better memes, okay? The memes have been pretty mid, all right? I'm holding to that. And I don't know where Tone is, so maybe he's popping in a minute. So we'll talk about something else for now, all right? I did see this, which is pretty interesting, and I think it does explain in chart form what I've been trying to say about the stock market for a long time that a lot of people miss. And it's this. You guys know I love Kobayashi Letter. I think they've been doing really good analysis on TradFi. They're kind of bearish on Bitcoin, to be honest, but you know, whatever. You know, we can't all be perfect, okay? But we did see this just happen. So U.S. M2 money supply surge plus 247.8 billion in May to a record 23.1 trillion. This marks the largest monthly increase since May 2021. Year to date, M2 has soared plus 698.6 billion, the largest January to May increase in 5 years. Money supply now stands 1.3 trillion above the March 2022 peak, which is, this one. Since 2000, money in circulation has grown at an average annual rate of plus 6.3%. U.S. money creation is accelerating. This is, you know, the easiest way of just explaining why us Bitcoiners are Bitcoiners in the first place. they have to continue to expand the money supply. It has to keep going up. And further, if you understand how a lot of the politicians and a lot of fiat economists judge whether the country is doing well, in particular US, but any country, it's based on GDP, which it's like if more people are around and, oh, here we go. Okay, Tone is here. Let's go. I'll give him a minute. But I think this is one of the reasons that we are seeing all the stocks continue to fly. There's more liquidity in the system. They have to keep printing. And Bitcoin, in my opinion, is completely undervalued. So I don't see Tone's camera yet. So maybe he's just popping in. Let me see if he can hear me. Oh, there he is. Okay. Let's go. Let's bring up the legendary Tone Vays. Good to have you, man. Can you hear me?
Hey guys. Oh, I didn't know you were already live for like an hour.
Yeah, no, this is how we do it. We go live and then we get our guest coming in like a traditional news show as an expert panelist, during the live show. But before we get into kind of the topic that we brought you on today, Tone, as a longtime Bitcoiner, as a longtime Bitcoin content creator, we got the OG Tone Vays with us, and some of the most classic work I've ever seen is, as we lovingly call it, chart boying. So, Tone, let's start with this bear market. Do you think we have bottom? Where do you think we currently are in price action? And then we will shift the conversation to the big controversy right now, which is BIP 110. So, start with, have we bottomed in your opinion?
No, I don't think we bottomed, but we are close.
Okay.
So we had a chance of, I thought that we bottomed back in February when the price crashed down to 60,000 and started its rally, making it all the way back into the 80s. Once that rally started to get faded and we started to fall back into the low 70s, I now put new lows on the table. We have had new lows, but not really, right? I mean, like technically, yes, 58,000 is lower than 60. Realistically, 58,000 and 60 is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So therefore, I think that the best case scenario, the best realistic case scenario, obviously the best case scenario is we go to 100,000 tomorrow. But the best realistic case scenario is that we bottom in the middle of July, somewhere between 49 and 55,000. That is my realistic end of the bear market. Something a little more pessimistic would take us all the way out into Q4 of this year, which if you are using the 4-year cycle, that's where it's supposed to bottom based on a 4-year cycle in Q4. But my problem with a bottom in Q4 is that it's 6 months to Q4. Like the end of Q4 is 6 months away. And there's no way the price will only be in the low 50s if the bear market continues all the way into January. So if the bottom isn't found in the low 50s in July, now I'm looking at sub 40,000 in Q4. Hopefully that one is avoided.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a bull case, base case, and bear case, which I think we're pretty much in alignment. I've been saying something very similar. They were actually yelling at me on the show yesterday, or maybe the other day. I'm like, Bitcoin bottom at like 60K as of now. They're like, dude, it's 58K today. I'm like, it's basically the same thing. Like, okay, it's not that much different. Like, yeah, technically lower, but whatever. Okay, well, thank you for that, Tone. Let's get into what you came on the show to talk about. So we dropped a video. Rustin dropped a video talking about Jack Cruz and, just looking into the whole BIP 110 controversy. And it made waves on Twitter. It blew up on Twitter. And everyone's like, oh, Simply Bitcoin's gone pro BIP 110. And we're kind of like, look, our content creators can say and believe whatever they want. We are, a decentralized media company in terms of our creatives. Everyone just does what they want. So we did that video. Everyone loved it. Now we're going to do the opposite side here. So, Tone, let's start with maybe for the people that don't understand what this whole controversy is about. As someone that's been in Bitcoin a lot longer than me, you were around the 2017 fork wars, the 2016, 2017 saga. What are we currently seeing right now with BIP 110 from your opinion?
Well, people don't really understand what BIP 110 is really about. I know BIP 110 is being framed that it's it's a way to keep Bitcoin pure. It's a way to keep Bitcoin money. It's a way to get spam off of the Bitcoin blockchain. What BIP 110 is really about is who controls Bitcoin development going forward, who controls the repo, who controls the code, who gets to decide on what changes are made to the Bitcoin protocol. And for the last, 15 years, it has been core developers. Now, who are core developers? Core developers is basically an open source group of a bunch of developers that choose to work on the Bitcoin protocol. And this group of developers has been challenged in the past. 2017 was one of these challenges. It was basically the same thing. It was, who gets to decide what changes are made to the Bitcoin code? And Roger Ver and company and the big blockers thought that was the way for Bitcoin to go forward. But obviously, they have to take control and be the people responsible for coding the protocol. And they failed in their attempt to basically take over the coding of the Bitcoin protocol. Yes, it was all around big blocks. Is Bitcoin going to hard fork into big blocks? But in the simplest, most dumbed down version, one of the things that keeps Bitcoin this decentralized beast of unstoppable value transfer is the coding of the protocol. And the one thing that scares me the most, more than mining centralization, more than how many nodes there are in the world, because I have a node. So I don't really care about all I care is that there's at least 10 other people like me, and I know there's more than 10 other people like me, right? People that just don't care and they'll keep a node. If the government says the code keeping a node is illegal, who cares, right? My node's running in a different country, and no one even knows which one is mine. So none of that really scares me. But the one thing that does scare me is coding of the Bitcoin protocol being controlled by one guy. And this is what we have with BIP 110. BIP 110 is basically looked as Jure, announcing that he knows better than everybody else as to what code, or the code of Bitcoin, right? He wants to be the god of the Bitcoin code, and this whole movement is basically that. There's very few people whose intellect I respect in that movement. Almost everyone that fought in the trenches for SegWit back in 2017 alongside me, they're all anti-BIP 110. People like Mechanic weren't there. People like Matthew Crowder wasn't there. The only one that was there was basically Luke, and he kind of helped start that other movement, just like he started this movement, only the last time he was kind of in line with Bitcoin Core, so he was never going to be able to take control of the Bitcoin protocol. But some of the crazier ideas coming from Luke, even back in 2017, like changing the proof of work algorithm, if the miners don't do what Luke says, he was ready to implement back in 2017. And there are videos of me discussing it. And I probably would have been on that side with Luke, that because SegWit was so important, and SegWit had overwhelming consensus. SegWit had 90+% consensus, maybe even 95% consensus. All the economic nodes, all of the pleb nodes, almost every company, everyone was pro SegWit. But there was one big miner, Bitmain, that wasn't pro-SegWit, and they were holding the entire system hostage because in order to get SegWit in, the core developers were very responsible, needing 95% of mining consensus, along with mass consensus of all the users and economic nodes and exchanges and everybody. Everyone was pro-SegWit except this one mining company. But this one mining company was very, very, it's one mining company, but they're pretending to be multiple mining companies, and they're controlling. I gotta kill this thing. It's really annoying. So I'll show you see it on camera. It's like one fly. And I missed it. I'll try it again. This is what happens when you're living outdoors. I got him. This one mining company was blocking the activation of SegWit. And after over a year of this one mining company blocking something that everybody wanted, the users said, we had enough, and we are ready to do a user-activated soft fork to force something that everybody wants. And what's happening right now is, especially people like Crowder and Mechanic, the two guys with YouTube channels, they are pretending that there is this 90 to 95% consensus for knots, like there was for SegWit. Yes, the BIP 148 user-activated soft fork was a minority, but it was a minority trying to force a change that was overwhelmingly wanted by the entire Bitcoin community, except like one mining operation that happened to be the most important, biggest mining operation, building all the mining equipment. So they're basically lying to you, either out of ignorance because they weren't around. Neither Crowder nor Mechanic were around in 2017. So maybe they actually believe that the user-activated soft fork movement, this minority, pushed a change that the minority wanted. That's not true. They pushed a change that the majority wanted. Knots, at best, is 20%, at best. And that's if you believe that all those nodes are real, which I don't. But just like all the big blocker nodes weren't really real. So their movement is just basically pure evil because soft forks are by nature dangerous. One of the biggest problems with the soft fork of 2017 was the fact that a soft fork would force a change in. And even back then, we discussed what a terrible precedent this would set going forward, because now you can have a hostile group trying to force a change through a UASF, which is not a good way to get changes of the code into the software, basically, to get into Bitcoin. But at least back then, this was, the last resort and a terrible way to get a change in, but at least it was a change everybody wanted. This change, saying this change is controversial, is probably giving it too much credit. The majority of the network do not want the rules of BIP 110. And yeah, they sound great. They sound, like this is what everybody should want. But they're forcing a change. They're basically using the whole libertarian angle against themselves. They're being dictators, trying to force something that they want, the majority doesn't want, but they think it would be better. But in reality, just the fact that if BIP 110 succeeds, it destroys the whole thing that makes Bitcoin decentralized. It basically says that a small minority with one developer can push a change, a controversial change, or a change that the majority don't even want onto the protocol. And Bitcoin becomes something that is completely uninteresting to me. The reason why from day one, I've been a Bitcoin maxi and anti-shitcoins is because I thought all other projects in crypto were centralized. This is the one thing that made Bitcoin special, is the fact that it is decentralized and everything else is centralized, right? Like the arguments that Monero is better digital money on the internet is a good argument, right? It's more private than Bitcoin. It's faster than Bitcoin. It's cheaper than Bitcoin. But it's faster and cheaper because nobody uses it, but it's a good argument, right? Something is more private, cheaper, and faster than Bitcoin. But it's never been interesting to me because it's not decentralized. I don't know how many developers it has, but maybe one, maybe two, maybe three. Who even knows? Nobody, right? And this is what separated Bitcoin from all the other crap in the crypto space, is that it's decentralized. Under BIP 110, to me, it's no longer decentralized. That whole part is dead. So therefore, I have no reason to care about Bitcoin going forward. And this is also why I can't see it possibly being adopted. I don't see how miners are going to mine BIP 110 blocks, because they know if they destroy Bitcoin's decentralization property, then the price of Bitcoin is going to start trending towards zero. We're never going to hit a new all-time high unless there's like mass inflation or something. But in nominal terms, we're never going to a new all-time high because Bitcoin becomes centralized. Ethereum, Monero, Cardano, Hex, it doesn't matter, right? They're all the same to me because they're not decentralized. And that's what BIP 110 will do. So I had a whole presentation in El Salvador back in February explaining this. And all that people like Mechanic kept screaming, when is he going to talk about what BIP 110 actually does? And I'm like, I just did for 30 minutes. What BIP 110 actually does is it centralizes the coding of Bitcoin in the hands of one guy. And that is completely opposite of what Bitcoin is to me. All right, I'm going to leave it here. Feel free to throw questions at me.
Yeah. I would like for maybe, some people that are believing in BIP 110, they're like, oh, Tones, he's spitting propaganda here. He's spitting core propaganda. Could you steel man maybe Luke's criticism of the core process here so people can understand kind of like the pro and against of how core development actually happens?
Well, core development happens by a decentralized group of people. Yes, some people within core have more authority than other people within core. I'm not even a big fan of core. I've criticized core many times. And the core that I remember had very competent group of developers in their top tier echelon, the 5 core developers with commit access that can actually implement the changes to the code. I respected many of those developers, but also there were many of those developers that were kicked out, like Jeff Garzik and Gavin Andreessen and Mike Hearn. Like a lot of these guys turned out to be bad actors. So it's not easy managing it. People talk about core like it's the centralized entity, but it's not. It's a combination of reading the room of what improvements to the Bitcoin code are needed. It's a combination of getting that code properly coded, and most importantly, getting that code reviewed so that when it's released, it doesn't fuck things up. Okay? Now, I will say that one of Core's biggest problems is that there's an ego thing that everyone wants to make changes to the Bitcoin code because everyone wants their name forever written in history that they're one of the top developers in the world. So I can spend a whole hour criticizing Core. I'm not too thrilled with the people that they have or maintaining the code these days. I'm not too thrilled with some of the ways they started to get together in person a lot more. John Attack did a good presentation of this in El Salvador as well. I can criticize Core all day. That's not the point. The point is Core is by far and away the best way to program future Bitcoin changes. Because even if I don't agree with some of the changes they're doing, at least I know that they're safe because there's enough eyes looking at the protocol. I don't know what the hell is going to happen if suddenly Bitcoin code is in the hands of one person, right? And I don't know what Core's talking points are because I don't pay attention to Core. Okay. I just know that we've had stability in Bitcoin for 15 plus years. And to me, this BIP 110 attack is the biggest instability we're dealing with in a long time. But once it gets ignored by the miners and is not activated, hopefully these people go away. But if they actually grow a pair, maybe they'll fork off the network like the big blockers and have their own, what they consider maxi coin, right? They're also screaming over this spam that is irrelevant. It is not harming the protocol in any way whatsoever. It is going to die on its own. It's already dying on its own. No one cares about it. It is not stopping Bitcoin from achieving its goal of being the ultimate form of decentralized value transfer and store of value. This spam on top of Bitcoin, I'm not happy about it either. And if we had a time machine, maybe we can go back in time and stop some of the changes that Core made back then, back in 2017, back in 2019 or 2020 when Taproot came in. Maybe some of those changes should not have been made. But rolling back these changes because a small vocal community wants to roll back changes is one of the most dangerous things you can do, because this spam is completely harmless.
Okay, love it. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat basically say this, summed up by this comment: Core version 30 changes were forced, not BIP 110. And that's like, I think the genesis of this whole controversy, right? With Core versus not, and now we're at BIP 110. So what's your thoughts on this? Actually, someone else added to that comment.
Completely incorrect, right? This is the propaganda from the not side. The changes in Core v30 did not alter consensus in any way. In any way. They didn't alter consensus. The big change in BIP 130, the removal of the op return limit. The removal of this op return limit the decision was made by Core. And by the way, many people are angry at Core that they made this decision in Core v30 and not like 5 years earlier. Because this was debated for a long time. Do we need this limit? This limit had become useless and irrelevant. Let me explain those two things, okay? The limit became useless when miners started mining large op returns. But not all miners, only the big miners. Because the big miners, basically, there was a way for anyone that wanted a large op return mined. Yes, the mempool wasn't accepting it, but you can directly send that transaction to Mara. The process was called Mara Slipstream. It was even like on their website. So suddenly, one big dominant miner had the advantage on mining large op returns. And but the other miners did not have an even playing field. So this op return limit was basically useless because these large op return transactions could be mined. And in order to even the playing field, Core developers said, why do we even need this limit? It's no longer functioning the way it used to because miners have decided to go around it. So that's one reason why the big op return limit was removed. There was another reason, right? Due to changes to the Bitcoin code in years past, which again, we can debate if they should have been done or should not have been done. And we debated this on my YouTube channel as well. Well, there's really only experts on one side, but pretend experts on the other side as well. The other reason was that because of changes made in years past, the Bitcoin blockchain was being spammed by shitty transactions, ordinals, whatever, in very inconvenient ways. And these, you're not going to stop people from, throwing garbage on the street or whatever, right? People were putting crap into the Bitcoin blockchain in a very data-heavy way. And if they were doing it in the op return, they would do it in a more data-friendly way, where it wouldn't clog up the Bitcoin mempool, the Bitcoin blockchain as much. This is the debatable topic because it depends on which side of the coin you look at. So if all of these spammers suddenly started using op return to stuff their crap in, the overall size of the blockchain would actually go down, which is the thing that they're complaining about. They're complaining that, oh, the blockchain is growing too fast, it's too big, which is actually ridiculous. It's not. But if all of these people started actually using op return, it would be a more data efficient way of putting data into the blockchain. I don't want crap data in the blockchain. I don't want the Bitcoin blockchain to be data storage. But if Bitcoin use as money cannot cannot get rid of all these other useless ways of using the Bitcoin blockchain, then Bitcoin as money was never meant to succeed. So I have full confidence that Bitcoin use as money will what's the word I'm looking for here? Drowns out. Thank you. Would drown out all this other use of the Bitcoin blockchain. Because if Bitcoin financial transactions can't do that, then Bitcoin as a financial blockchain was never meant to succeed. It really is that simple. And these people are scared of this irrelevant spam that somehow it's going to overtake, Bitcoin's financial transactions, which is ridiculous, right? Again, it's a movement by a small group of people that just want to be in control and at the top of the pyramid. And they have a pretty good, campaign on brainwashing people just on their emotions and not on the technicalities. From a technical perspective, they lose on every argument. So this is why it's emotional arguments. Notice how the CSAM argument has disappeared. Remember how 6 months ago, oh my God, Bitcoin blockchain, or only like the pedophiles will store all of their pictures in the Bitcoin blockchain. Notice how that argument went away, because guess what? That didn't happen, right? And yet you're going to believe these people on everything else, all the other crap they were saying? It's insane.
Okay, love it. Another question from the chat goes, what happens worst case if this BIP 110 is soft forked?
Well, the worst case scenario is that the miners get coerced into running the BIP 110 soft fork, and BIP 110 becomes the dominant client. Basically, NOTS becomes the dominant client. That's the worst case scenario. I'm not expecting this scenario, but the worst case scenario is that BIP 110 succeeds. That is literally the worst case scenario for Bitcoin. Basically, to me, that fires the core team. I don't know how many developers you guys have at Simply, but imagine
very few developers watching this show, I would say.
No, not watching, working.
Oh, working. Very few developers.
Right. Now imagine someone comes in and says, the work you guys did over the last 5 years at Simply has been garbage. We're going to roll back some of these changes. Do you think your developers are going to stick around and work, or are they going to say they're going to quit and go find another job?
Quit.
Exactly.
Find another job.
Exactly. Right. This is exactly what the core developers said back in 2017. I have it on video. I have a tweet from Luke Dash-Jur himself saying that if Bitcoin forks to 2x against the wishes of core developers would quit and find other projects. Eric Lombroso, one of the biggest, one of the top developers in 2017 that worked on SegWit, said the same thing on our podcast in debates with Jimmy Song multiple times, that he and others would quit if Bitcoin forks to 2 megabytes. So if the changes made by core are rolled back with BIP 110, either the majority of those core developers would quit, And the ones that don't quit, I don't see how I can respect them going forward, right? If I hired a developer that did a bunch of stuff for me, and then someone else comes in, explains to me what a bunch of garbage that person did, and rolls it back because this is clearly the right thing to do, is to roll it back. Why on earth would I keep paying that developer to do more work, right? It makes no sense. So I don't see how any core developer that worked on these changes over the last 5-6 years would remain coding Bitcoin. Therefore, the code of Bitcoin gets put into the hands of, again, one guy, 1.5 guys. I mean, there is some anonymous person. Who the hell knows, right? Just like, have you noticed tens of thousands of Twitter accounts or X accounts, all created after 2020, all being anonymous and all being pro BIP110? They're all AI bots, right? So we have no idea. Yes, it's dangerous to be a publicly known core developer, but at the same time, if you're an anonymous core developer, and unless you have a history of work that speaks for itself, but even if you are an anonymous core developer with a history of work that speaks for itself, how do we know your work hasn't been taken over by a 3-letter agency, right? And they basically arrested you and took over your GitHub and your social media profiles, right? We just don't know. So there is a danger in having anonymous core developers. It's not a problem when you have a group of 50 plus because they all check each other's work. But under BIP110, I'll have zero trust in Bitcoin's code. That's it. It's over. Like I'll have zero. Like I'll never talk about Bitcoin again. Like I'll talk about Bitcoin as much as I talk about Hex and Richard Hart. Right. I mean, that's how relevant Bitcoin becomes under BIP110 and one developer. Again, that's my personal view, and this is why I don't see how it can possibly be adopted. That's the worst case scenario. Now, because it's a soft fork, if miners don't mine it, it just dies. It goes away, right? It just becomes irrelevant. But if they put in replay protection, then there would be an actual split, and then they would become a shitcoin. And what defines a shitcoin? Well, it's not going to have the most amount of proof of work. Remember, the big blocks in Bcash could have been Bitcoin if they had more mining. If their chain was, I don't want to say longer, they may have more blocks, but they don't have more proof of work, because it's not about how many blocks you have. It's about the hashing power that it's about the strength of those blocks. So whichever chain has the most amount of cumulative proof of work is Bitcoin. So if there are if they add replay protection, they will, I believe they will be the minority shitcoin, and they will have their own coin because they're replay protection, and Luke will finally be able to do his proof of work change that he wanted to do in 2017 but never got the chance. For someone that runs a mining pool, he sure hates miners enough to render all of them irrelevant by changing the algorithm that they mine under. He retweeted this recently that he's interested in doing a proof of work change like he was going to do in 2017 as well. But the miners all ended up capitulating to the user-activated soft fork, and everything went fine. So what they want, what the BIP110 attackers want, is they want a URSF, a user-rejected soft fork. They want people like myself to take them so seriously that we force the miners to mine on our chain. And I would not do that, right? Because it's not easy getting consensus. And the URSF will not have consensus either. And I think the only URSF proposal out there is being coded by someone that I don't trust. So why would I follow code being coded by people that I don't trust, right? And your comments are going to blow up right now. Oh, Tone was to trust people. Tone was to trust people. Well, I trust my laptop to continue to do the stream with you, right? There's trust in everything, right? I trust the fact that Bitcoin is a decentralized network. That's why I believe in Bitcoin. I trust the fact that miners are mining in their own self-interest that strengthens the network. I trust the fact that there is enough eyes on the Bitcoin code that there's not going to be any bugs that would make my transaction tomorrow not functioning, right? I trust the developers to do the best job they can in keeping Bitcoin decentralized. These are all the trusts that I have in the system, right? And one random person coding a user rejected soft fork is not something of interest to me. And if the Bitcoin miners end up being coerced and start mining BIP110, and BIP110 becomes the dominant fork of Bitcoin, then to me, the Bitcoin project failed. And I won't be on your interviews going forward, right? Because it'll be irrelevant to me at that point. But it's unfortunate that we are having this argument over something as irrelevant as spam because one guy wants to be in charge of Bitcoin code.
Got it. Okay. All I heard from this whole thing is maybe an airdrop is in our future again. So
Unlikely.
that should. I know. But hey, you know, a troll can shit post. So the how do I put this? We're currently. What's it? Minor signaling or minor activation is going to be in about a month, right? So I think this is going to heat up even more over this next month. I forget what the date is. Was it August 1st or it's at some point in August? Maybe it was like 3rd or something like that.
There's a countdown. Actually, if you go to BIP110.com, it redirects to Jameson Lopp, who is like the biggest troll of them all against BIP110. And it has a countdown, 37 days, August 7th.
Okay, August 7th. All right. So everything you said, now where do you think we are going to go from here until August 7th? Like, what do you foresee that the next month is going to be for, you know, discourse on Twitter? Because it really does feel like the discourse is only on Twitter. Is something that I've kind of noticed. So what are you foreseeing that the next month is going to be? Do you think it's going to get more heated? There's going to be more controversies? Like what do you think is going to happen over the next month?
Sure. Oh, by the way, since you have the countdown up there, there is a link there. Oh, no, it's to see
Layman's
the status.
Guide.
No, not that one.
See the status. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, no, it's not a serious project. That's the one I was going to, but this is good. This is also good.
I'll pull them up.
No, not that one.
Okay.
It's not a serious project. Right. This basically explains how one guy is trying to take control of the entire protocol.
Okay. Let me put this in the chat. Everyone can go check this out.
Yeah. I honestly, I didn't even read it because I didn't need to read it because I kind of know everything that's there, maybe not finer details, but it's everything I've been saying. And then I just saw that link last week and I'm like, oh, sounds like someone wrote up everything I've been saying. Now, not because I've been saying it. They probably had no idea. They're probably thinking the same thing I am. So the discourse is only on Twitter because that's the only place where they can, you know, have like 5,000-10,000 AI bots, trying to convince everybody else that they actually have some kind of consensus. Outside of Twitter, nobody cares about this because it is completely irrelevant. And the big question is, why do I care so much about this, right? Why did I come out of Bitcoin retirement to talk about this issue? And I just want to be on the record that I never had a problem with NOTs. NOTs was a different implementation of Bitcoin. And NOTs was starting to get traction. And all they had to do was stay patient. All they had to do was, get a group of like 20, 30 developers coding NOTs. All they had to do was have the entire network start adopting NOTs as the dominant client. If NOTs had reached 70, 80% consensus of the entire network, then they become the dominant client. And then none of this would be controversial. This would just be the way Bitcoin is. But they decided not to wait until they actually had consensus of 80, 90% of the network running the NOTS client. They decided to force their changes from a 20% position with a dangerous user-activated soft fork. And the only people that care about this are pretty much on Twitter. Outside of Twitter, nobody cares. The big companies don't care. Now, what's going to happen if they start to care in the next 30 days? And this is the unfortunate part. Because time is running close, you don't know how big companies and big people are going to react. I don't know if Saylor is on top of this debate, and he holds almost 1 million coins. I don't know how other big hodlers of Bitcoin are going to react, in the weeks leading up to the UASF day. So my concern is, if these people actually react the wrong way and panic, we can see hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin being flash sold on the open market. So don't rule out a massive crash in the price of Bitcoin, because the worst thing is panic, and people panic when they don't know what to do. And if someone is holding a bunch of Bitcoin and they're concerned that this user-activated soft fork is going to destroy the Bitcoin protocol because they don't know better, or honestly, I don't even blame them, because I'm on this show saying if BIP110 succeeds, then to me, the Bitcoin network's dead. But I give it a very low probability of BIP110 succeeding. The reason I give it a low probability is because I'm kind of keeping up with the situation. If someone doesn't keep up with the situation and they think UASF has a high probability of succeeding, they may panic and sell 20, 30,000 Bitcoin if they're holding them on behalf of themselves, on behalf of others. So we can see massive price crash in Bitcoin. So don't rule anything out. You got to be prepared for that. See, back in UASF of 2017, I was so committed to BIP148 UASF that I was willing to let every Satoshi go to zero that I have a key to. But I don't. But are other people willing to do that? I don't know. I'm not willing to do it for this one. I'll tell you that much right now, because I'm on the other side. I'm on the side of, I'm expecting the miners to ignore this. But if they don't, then I'll be happy I got out sooner than later.
Okay, Tone, I do want to be respectful of your time, because I think you've already been here for like 45 minutes or something, but I did see a couple of people in the chat say something about like BIP110 is the node runners taking back control of the network versus, the spam wars was the miners versus the economic node runners. And it does seem like it's a full circle moment. It's almost like, eternal September problems here, where the same things kind of relive themselves. They don't repeat, but they're kind of similar. So what would be your response to someone that says something about the idea like BIP110 is for the node runners taking back control of the network?
Well, for starters, I don't trust the node statistics. Anyone can spin up a node. In my experience, over dealing with multiple of these wars, most of the people that are claiming these things tends to be the side with an unreasonable amount of fake nodes. That we'll start there. Other than that, node runners that don't have any serious, money on the line, companies on the line, stake on the line, they're not as relevant as they think they are. Just because you run a node and you hold a few $1,000s worth of Bitcoin doesn't mean your vote counts the same as, say, a company like Coinbase or a Michael Saylor, right? They think they're the same. They think they're equal because they run a node, but they're not. So what you need to look at, and this is, there is no formula for this, right? The value of your node is the economic wealth of your node, the amount of Bitcoin you hold, the amount of transactions you do, the amount of activities you do, the what do you bring to the Bitcoin network besides running a node? Because any monkey can run a node, right? Like the Bitcoin ecosystem is only marginally stronger with 1 million nodes versus 10,000 nodes. Okay, it doesn't get extra decentralized. Maybe a little bit. It gets decentralized a little bit more. It is very, very marginal. So I really don't care about some random node. The nodes that matter to me are nodes weighted by economic value, economic weight. Okay, and it is a little subjective. I can't tell you how much more important Michael Saylor's node is to yours. You know, everyone can choose their own. To me, Michael Saylor's node is more important than 1,000 nodes holding $1 in Bitcoin, right? These nodes are generally irrelevant. And most people haven't even been told the real reason why they need to run the node. The main reason to run a Bitcoin node is that you validate your own transactions to make sure that Bitcoin you're receiving are not counterfeit, are not being double spent, and are not being directly tracked by someone else. That's the main reason to run a node, right? It's not to have a vote on what's best for the future of Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's great. The masses can vote for the right president, right? And how often does that work out, right? So believing that just because you're on a node, you should decide, you should be the ultimate decider on what Bitcoin code is, I think is, what's the right way to put it here? Overplaying, I'm trying to think of the right words here, because everyone's going to take this shit out of context, as they always do. To use a basketball analogy, people start to smell themselves just because they run a node. You run a node and suddenly you think you know what's best for Bitcoin. People that build their nodes from scratch, people that didn't buy a node in a box, people that didn't go to Casa for their node, people that didn't go to Start9 for their node, people that actually built a node from scratch, I respect those people way more. And most of those people that built a node from scratch have a way better understanding on what kind of power that node gives them, because they'll understand that that node gives them very little power. It gives them the power over validating their own transactions, and that's about it. But people have been convinced that just because you're able to spin up a node, that somehow you should be in control of the Bitcoin network. And that's a very dangerous precedent.
All right, Tone. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I do want to give you a moment to, if you feel you want to say one last thing to the audience out there, to anyone that may oppose your ideas, or maybe just to the people out there that are confused about what's going on. Floor is yours for the final message on the show, Tone. I do want to be respectful of your time.
Well, I guess my final message is, if you head over to my Twitter, I should probably pin this. I'm going to change my pinned tweet. And I spent a lot of time during the 2017 fork wars trying to make people understand what the right, which side of the chain they need to be on. And clearly, I was proven right over that scenario. I went back and I rewatched all the old content. We're talking probably over 24 hours of video content. God knows how many articles, God knows how many tweets. I spent just 2 weeks refreshing my memory of the last user-activated soft fork. And I documented it all on Twitter because there are people, and I'm going to name them, Matthew Crowder and Mechanic, that are making videos comparing the current situation to 2017. And I don't know if they're straight up lying or are they just ignorant because they weren't there? So this is why I went back and I documented it all for people, that if you start to believe that the current user-activated soft fork has any similarity to the user-activated soft fork of 2017, you've been lied to and manipulated. So go do the research, review that Twitter feed, that Twitter thread that I did. It's going to take you a lot of time. But if you're not going to take the time, then you're going to eventually get so angry with the current situation, you will follow your Pope Luke Jur and fork yourself off the network, because eventually they will spin off into their own coin. It's inevitable because they're following the Roger Ver blueprint.
All right, Tone. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Some people in the chat are, they're getting a little angry, but guys, go to Tone Vays' Twitter. It's just at Tone Vays for the audio listeners, TONEVAYS. Truly appreciate it. Obviously, as someone that I've been around for a while, but I came in shortly after the fork wars, so I never claimed to know what it was like to be a part of it. I came in the aftermath. Literally, like once the rubble was settled is when I came into Bitcoin. So I truly appreciate having someone on the show that's been there for a while. I know you're taking a lot of heat right now. And for everyone in the chat, guys, this is what we love to do here on Simply Bitcoin, is bring Bitcoiners from both sides and discuss this stuff. Maybe if things get more heated, maybe we can host a debate here on the show. But Tone, appreciate it.
You know what the best part is? All the heat that I'm getting are from irrelevant people or people I don't respect, right? So I'm not actually getting heat from anyone I respect, which means I don't really care, right? Now, there are a lot of people I respect in the Bitcoin space. That circle has been dwindling over the years. But all the people that I actually respected, Luke Jur, that's the only one, right? I do respect Luke Jur coding skills, but that's where it ends. Not his, I don't even agree with his view of morality, because he has his own view of morality that I disagree with, right? So I do respect his coding skills, and that's kind of where it ends. There's one miner that does mine BIP110 blocks that I respect. That is Bob Barnett of Barefoot. And that's pretty much the list. That's the list. There's nobody else on that side who I respect intellectually at all when it comes to the issues of Bitcoin. So it doesn't bother me at all that people don't like what I have to say. I've heard it all before, and with death threats from the big blocker camp back in 2017. So it won't faze me one bit.
All right, Tone. Well, again, appreciate it. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Maybe if things get a little more heated, maybe we can bring you back a little closer to that August 7th date. If if you have the time. I know you're retired now. I know you're retired from Bitcoin content, but maybe we can bring you out of retirement twice. So thank you so much, Tone. I appreciate it.
I need to do one more show on my personal channel just to sum it all up. I'll probably do it this month, later this month, closer to the day as well. All right.
And wait, can you? Yeah, Tone, you can pop off, but can you give people your YouTube channel so if they can keep an eye out on that? Again, Tone Vays on Twitter, and then drop your YouTube channel at some point this month. You might get another video.
Yeah, just Tone Vays everywhere. Tone Vays on YouTube. There is another YouTube channel where I do more focused financial content, and that's Black Box and Financial Summit. But if you just Google my name on YouTube, you'll find both channels. Tone Vays on Twitter, Instagram, and that's pretty much it. I don't really use any other social media.
All right, Tone. Well, on that note, let's let you go and you can go back into Bitcoin retirement.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Peace out. All righty then, guys. Well, as you can tell, I told you it was going to be spicy. I was reading the chat, some pro, some against. Hey, this is part of being a Bitcoiner, is having these discussions and being a part of the Bitcoin thing, just making your choice. Again, we will never force you to do anything with your money. We will bring the discussion so that you guys can make your decisions for yourself. That's what we try to do here at Simply Bitcoin. On that note, guys, I will see you tomorrow for another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Have a good rest of your day.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.